This is fourth episode of Agile Fridays, which I mistakenly called No Nonsense Fridays. But to make our Fridays more fun, we are going live every Friday with this excellent lineup of speakers. So today our topic is, are project management tools enough to bring uh, entrepreneurial agility, enterprise agility, and we are, since the entire podcast is about is about data driven decisions, is about all that stuff. So we are just discussing if the project management tools are just good enough. So apologies, Robert, if I hope you don't mind if we just discuss only two of the questions that we were discussing, if we just do that again.
Don't worry, we can run it all over again. You can ask again if we just missed. I would hate to deprive the listeners from whatever we were talking about. I think the conversation
Right.
was brilliant. So if you want to run it again, I'm all fine with that.
Okay, right. So nice of you. Yeah, because we were talking about some of the things that are which are conversations being done in all the organizations. Whether we should do this, whether we should not do this, whether we should do this in this way or another way. So we were not discussing. So today we were not discussing Jira versus Asana versus Trello versus XYZ. Rather, we were discussing why there are still weak processes despite all these all these project management tools. And we were uh, we were actually discussing this thing that these project management tools do they cover all the requirements which modern teams they have. So we started off with, and we will just go with it again. So we started off with that organizations make plan. A lot of people like this word agility, but when it comes to implementing this agility, then the transformation process somehow gets buried under other processes. So people say no process can solve the problem of too much processes, because there are too much process and we are trying to bring another process of project management tools to solve that process. So I want your opinion, Robert, on this. If you agree with this statement that no process can solve the problem of too much processes.
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much because if you impose another process on top of whatever mess you have, you're probably gonna have just more mess. You know, you have to go back to the roots where it begins and ask the question: why do we have those processes? Yeah, and if you start with that question, and if you just try to figure out the setting of the company and figure out all the niche nuances and details, why the hell do we have these processes and what do we want to gain from them, and start focusing on the gain, you know, on the stuff we want to have, because ultimately no company wants to have a process. You know, the process is just an empty word, empty stuff. They want to have some gain out of the process. And now you start talking. Now you can just say, okay, we can drop these processes because they don't bring anything, or the stuff they bring is a small value. So we don't need them. We can drop them, or we can keep them kind of dormant or whatever. But if you impose another process on top, just gonna lose.
Right. Right. So, okay. So, do you think that these project management tools they help organizations trying to achieve enterprise agility, or is it the opposite thing? I mean, if we are to take Amazon's example, the North Star is we seek to be our most customer centric organization, and people have seen this mantra. They have seen the successful execution of this mantra. My question is, now a lot of people are trying to achieve this mantra. They are trying to bring in more enterprise agility. When we talk about project management tools and technology in those tools, do you think, Robert, that helps organizations achieve that enterprise agility?
Well, I think it doesn't come down to the tooling itself. The tooling may help, the tooling may provide you some data, some transparency, but it comes down to however you use whatever the tooling provides. and how you start using that tool and how you treat it throughout the days. It comes down really to people and their decision, because you can imagine that you can have all the data in the world. You can, probably if the physics is deterministic, you can even predict the future. And then what do you do with that information? No, you can just have it there laying down and not do anything, or you can use it to your advantage, or you can misuse it to somebody's disadvantage. So it really comes down to the people who are making the decisions and who are using said tooling, if the tool's going to help you in your journey to, you mentioned agility, it might be a different goal, or it's not going to help you. So if you are in a position of, let's say, CIO or CTO trying to decide about tooling, I think first question is that like, do I have the right people to use any tool? Will they treat it right? Are their intentions correct?
Right.
We're
Okay.
getting a little bit philosophical, I know.
Right. Okay. So if history is any guide to the future, we have seen low adoption of these tools historically. We have seen, if I have to quote this survey, this Wellington survey, it said only 22% of companies they use project management software, and it comes as, of course, no surprise that if these are the stats, then only 55% of organizations they do not have access to real-time KPIs. So we clearly see that there's a problem. There's a problem with, in history, that people did not adopt very well with these tools. My question is it the tools? Is it the people? Um, yep.
I really like. I don't know if I say like the number, but it's really shocking to me that only 22% of the organizations use PM software. It's really a really low number. I'd expect something in more than half. And it sounds like it relates to the organizations missing the real-time KPIs and the real-time data. If you are a big organization, like bank or manufacturer or something like that, you need the data. You just need it. You cannot rely on somebody who will just bring you the data, some middle management, just shuffling data from one point to the other. You have to have it on spot. So this is kind of a kind of worrying factor that only several percent of organizations use the PM software. The question is if they find if the remaining of the companies they found some other options, some other tooling, maybe just plain paper, maybe it's working for them, good for them, and that would be great. But I would really strike the point of, if you want to grow and if you want to be data driven, as we are migrating to data driven society, then we need those data, so you have to have some form of effort to get the relevant data and maybe even real-time data of what's happening with your teams, with your product, with your company.
Okay. And if we fast forward to today, we see a lot of refined tools, contemporary tools with good user experience, user interface. But we still see people asking these questions: do we really need these tools? We still see problems in adoption of these tools. So my question is, do these tools, they lack a rollout plan? Do teams, they don't have enough time to adopt to these tools? Are these tools tricky? If you were to choose one or two of them, do you think that these questions, they fit into that description?
I would say it's a mix of reasons and problems. If it comes down to, like, it really reminds me the Agile Manifesto, people and interactions over processes and tools. If you start with the tooling and just go for the tooling, you are gonna miss the conversations and the people. Some tools are really complex, and it's kind of a contributing factor of people not wanting to use them. You can imagine, filling in your story or task or whatever you're working on and having 17 fields and checks and questions to just fill in. You're gonna probably give up in the middle of your trying. So the complexity of the tools is a contributing factor. from my experience, what I've seen with the teams I've been working with is that even set complexity can be tackled, overcome, if the team is part of the conversation from the very beginning, if they chose to use that tool, if it's not imposed to them. If you impose something on the team, they will usually say, yeah, I'm going to do it. And the result will lack.
Right.
So if you start a conversation with them from the very beginning, as I said, they will probably be more prompt to really do the legwork, fill it in, and do it right.
So ownership matters. It is
Yeah,
not that
ownership matters, exactly.
you impose the tool and you're supposed to. So, ladies and gentlemen, the last question that I'm going to ask again, because there was this interesting thing that we were talking a lot, and then I realized that I didn't press the go live button. So Robert and I have been discussing a lot of things, and this is the last question that I would like to re-ask him. It's very kind of him to just he's answering this question in as much detail that he did in the non-pre-recorded version. Version of
Stuff
it.
happens.
So my question is, data is power. These project management tools, I suppose that they generate a lot of data which teams need for productivity, for predictability, for avoiding surprises, for better client delivery. Yet we don't see those conversations happening in organizations and teams, that if we use X tool and if we complement, if we use, let's say, Jira, align it with Jira Align, if we use Jira, align it with Tempo, with Khoji or XYZ, you are going to get these insights, you're going to get these intelligence. We do not see those conversations. So where's the problem? Is it the teams not realizing the data is power, or is it these tools not producing good enough data to convert that into intelligence insights?
I would probably start with saying that nobody and no teams should blame anything on the tooling they use, because they chose to use that tool, and the tool is what tool does. We may use it to our advantage, we may use it to our disadvantages, and we may just misuse it in a sense. And you said data is power, and I may add that power is corrupting. So if you are using any form of PM tooling, and you said it really doesn't matter which one is that. It may be Jira, whatever. It may be even a paper on wall. If you're going to misuse it, if you're going to misuse the data that is given to you, then probably you will not gain any benefits. You will have those sidetrack talks, and people just gonna hate it. On the other hand, if the people start owning the tool, and we are going back to the ownership from the previous question, like if they own the tooling, if they really want some benefits out of it, and they've been part of the conversation from the beginning, then they will start kind of even owning the data they are putting in and starting to have those conversations. And I'm sorry to repeat it, but as you said, many of the listeners didn't hear that. The question reminded me of my team I worked with for like 1.5 years. They've been constantly struggling to deliver. The data said like you are delivering 10% of your commitment. We've been doing sprint by sprint comparisons, and it was like always 10%, 12%. It was really low. And I've been telling that every single time. I told that, guys, don't commit to that. Don't say to our customers and to our stakeholders that you're going to deliver. You know that you are not going to deliver. And everybody said, yeah, this was just an exception, and we're going to do that this time. And it was like 7 months in a row. 7 months in a row, everybody was saying, yeah, this was just an exception. And they didn't accept that. So we have to start kind of accepting the data and detach our feelings from it. The data is whatever that is, and we have to be driven by the reality of the project, not by gut feeling of anyone in the project.
Right. And I think we should have a separate podcast on why data and why not gut feelings, because I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
And we should have some psychologists in that session. I mean, because apparently if something makes sense and my gut feeling that is not aligned with it. I am repulsive to that, even if it makes a lot of sense. So there has to be something underlying, and so we'll hopefully cover that in our future podcast. So, but there is something really really missing here. The thing is, Robert, when these project management tools are rolled out, there are sometimes, actually a lot of times, there are operational performance dips while the company is taking baby steps to overcome the culture, to overcome the, while they're in the process of transformation, performance dips. So
Mhm.
do you think that these performance dips, they are inevitable? Do you think that with introduction of these project management tools, these dips can still be tackled?
Honestly, I'm just again speaking from my experience. I rarely see that the dip is not present. There is always a dip in performance in whatever we are delivering because we are just adjusting to whatever agreements we had, to whatever tooling we chose to use, to whatever processes and conversation we chose to have from now on. And it's kind of a transformation. So we should count on it. We should prepare on it. And we should just say honestly, right now we as a team decided to use this kind of tooling, this kind of a process, and this kind of stuff, and it's going to take us time to adjust. And honestly say it and count on it in our planning and in our talks with customers and with stakeholders. And even that moment when we realize this, it will help us to like make the dip lower. It's not going to be a huge dip, it's going to be a small dip, if we just realize that there is going to be some. But if we're going to think that we're just going to wing it and we're going to be good at it because we are good at everything, then you're going to suffer. Then you're going to really lose the productivity because it will not account for some hiccups with whatever the tooling you choose and with whatever process you choose. And those hiccups would slow you down more significantly than just admitting there's going to be hiccups. I'm going to prepare for them. I'm going to count with them.
Okay, and before I ask my last question there, let's briefly touch on that conflict of priorities in using these tools. So, like we were discussing, there's this management which wants the work log, let's say, to be more transparent, more visible, so that they can see the strategic direction of company, the effort, where the effort is being spent, where it could have been spent, where the course can be improved in future. And yes, there is power and power, but still, maybe from strategic perspective, they're trying to look at all these metrics. On the other side, there's this team which is reluctant to share every bit of what they're working on, because they just don't feel like they're like doing that. They believe in agile philosophy. They think we are a self-functioning team, and we don't really need those kind of tools. So do you think that there is this conflict here? Any suggestions for organizations trying to overcome these conflicts?
Oh yeah, that conflict is present in many, many teams, usually in big companies and huge companies like conglomerates and such. The bigger the company, the bigger the problem actually is, because the management is more kind of detached from the team, and the team is more detached from management. And these two parties don't talk too much, and they don't understand. So maybe my suggestion to overcome this is to just trying to explain and have the conversation, team, management, and everybody who's involved. Why do we need this kind of a data? Why do we need this kind of a process? Then the people will start kind of owning it and try to realize, okay, if I don't fill it in, if I just make it up and do some kind of a trickery with that, just so my work is done, then it's actually going to hurt the company, and that's going to eventually hurt me, because I'm with the company, and if the company doesn't succeed, I will not succeed. On the management side, it's the same stuff. If I'm not transparent with my team what I'm doing with those numbers, then they will probably find a way to trick me. And if I'm transparent, There will obviously be a number of people who will try to trick me anyways, but there will be a lot of people who will just provide the data because they will feel safe. They can provide the data, and you will not misuse them, and you will just treat them transparently. And that comes to any data that really applies not only to project management tools, data related stuff. It may be even like if you have some bonuses to distribute to the team, and if you are transparent with the process, how it's done, and why is this money not that money, or why is it like that, you will have more benefits of team really trusting you and going with you and not trying to cheat you.
Okay, that is interesting, and I think that is very useful for a lot of teams. My last question is actually a scenario. So, since we are in suggestions and recommendations mode right now, so let's say a team comes to you, and they're trying to see if they should be picking this tool or that tool, or if they should even be using any tool. What would be your advice to the lead selecting the tool, or and to the team, if they are part of that decision process to choose a team? And secondly, would you suggest them to align their data with intelligence to improve their productivity and client delivery, let's say product delivery?
Mhm. Let's start with the first question. What I would advise is to ask the question, why do you need the tool? Are you trying to improve, and what are you trying to improve? Every team is in some situation, whatever the situation is, and they are using some form of tooling. Maybe it's just a plain sheet of paper, maybe it's whatever they're using, and they want some change. They are missing something. Obviously, they are missing something. So what is that? What do you want to gain? And then you can have these conversation and put down some points you would like to gain from said tooling, and then you can go and research which tool best delivers those. You might end up with a brilliant tool that will really give you, if it's agility and adaptiveness that you're striving for, you might end up with a completely different tool that if you want to be really compliant, because there are companies that really needs to be compliant and you need to track everything because they are auditable. And if they miss some information, it's a big problem for them, legal problem. Those may end up with completely different tooling. And if you don't have that question, don't have that conversation, you will just pick kind of randomly based on whatever is on the market.
Right.
And the second question, I kind of forgot that.
So the second question is: once they adopt the tool, once they have the tool, would you recommend them to make use of the data which is being generated by this tool?
Yeah, as much as feasible and possible for you, because the data may hold the insight the human brain will just not comprehend. Having some even AI or big data run under that, it might tell you some insights. The story I mentioned with my team not delivering, it's kind of obvious. You can see that, but there are many nuances, like Fridays are not a good day to release. You might find out that every time we release on Friday, that release is buggy.
Right.
That's kind of a big stretch. You have to have somebody or some automated system to just exploring the data and just finding these kind of relationships out. So yeah, if you have the power, if you have the maybe money to spend on such a features, go for it.
Right. My suggestion to teams, if Friday is a tense day for releases, is watch Agile Fridays. That will
Yes.
always if it is live, you should watch it. So Robert, thank you so much for this session. I mean, I'm just going to summarize based on how much my memory will serve me. Please add to it if I miss anything. So yes, data is power, but power, it will be even more powerful if there is a lot of transparency in the process with all the stakeholders, internal stakeholders, and if people are shared the purpose of why we are extracting the data and how we will use the data. And yes, data is power, but power comes with a lot of responsibility. That is a lesson for management. They need to to be more responsible with this data, how they can make this data and how they can use this data for their teams. The data should not be should not go in like more of monitoring and evaluation mode. It should be used to make the teams more powerful, more accomplished, more self-functioning teams. And secondly, project management tools, historic adoption must have been slow, fine, but now the society is moving towards data-driven patterns. We are now more towards towards this race, and this culture of project management tools, it has picked up in last few years. So now it makes a lot of sense using these project management tools and making some sense of the data that these tools offer. So did I miss anything?
I think you summarized it nicely. I may just add the ownership of the tooling, and whoever used that should be the owner and the part of the choosing process. So we don't just miss the people from the beginning.
Right. All right. So thank you so much. This was an interesting podcast where we had to do certain things twice, and that made our answers more refined as compared to the first version.
Maybe more chaotic.
Right. So sometimes a lot of good things come out of chaos. So I hope that this was a good session. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you so much, Robert, for your time this Friday. And
Thank you, Kalim.
we will go live again next Friday with another session. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Kalim, and thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. Have a great day.